What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I wanted to go ahead and go over my current diet and what I'm doing as I start to enter into a bulking phase. I hope that this video helps in giving you guys tips on things that you can start to implement in your own diet and how you can even approach your training as you get into your next bulking phase. Now, clearly we are in the summer and most people are usually dieting down right now. But because my main focus is on competitive natural bodybuilding, I'm actually about to re-enter into a massing phase. From about Easter Sunday until now, I have been in a deficit where I've lost about 13 total pounds throughout that entire time frame, in hopes of competing and doing better in my next competition season, which as of now is planned to occur in around 2023. I'm not sure if my first show is going to be yet, but my goal is to hopefully make it to the WNBF Natural Worlds in 2023. In addition, I think I'm going to shoot for the IPE Worlds as long as they're not the same dates. And I might even try to compete in a few OCB shows and potentially try to qualify for the Yorton Cup. But besides all that, let's jump into it. Let's talk about a few different things that might be able to help you guys as you get into your next bulking phase. I want to take you guys through my actual grocery haul. So I started off with going to Costco. And when I went to Costco, the first thing I actually invested in was a new blender. We had a blender before, but it got broken while we were moving, so haven't had a blender in forever. And I really wanted to start making smoothies as the weather gets warmer and warmer. It's just a great way to be able to get in a lot of antioxidants, a lot of micronutrients, in addition to some macronutrients that of course you're getting from things like fruit. Overall, I'm just a big fan of smoothies. So picked up a new blender, the Ninja blender. I've used it a few times already and it has been chef's kiss. So the next thing that I actually picked up, this is pretty crucial and a staple in my diet and something that can help you guys out. I tend to eat chicken thighs when I'm in not only a bulking phase, but even a cutting phase. One really cool thing that you can make sure that you check out with your chicken thighs, turn the package around and look at the fat content. There are a few grocery stores in the area around me where I can buy chicken thighs that have 9 grams of fat per serving. And then there are a few grocery stores that sell chicken thighs with only about 4.5 grams of fat per serving. So these ones that I picked up from Costco have that 4.5 gram per fat per serving, which is about 4 ounces is the serving. And the protein amount is comparable to what you would see of chicken breast. So after going to Costco, I actually ran to Aldi's and I ran to Giant Eagle. If you're not already doing this, this is something that you can start to incorporate. So if you shop at multiple different grocery stores, you can save a lot on the prices that you spend. So when I shop at Costco, I primarily buy my protein sources there. When I go to Aldi, I'm usually buying produce. And then when I go to Giant Eagle, I'll pretty much just buy anything that I can't get at the other two. Oftentimes this ends up being things like specific condiments or certain foods that I know that I'll get at your average grocery store that you won't find in bulk or at an Aldi. The first thing that I ended up getting from Costco was I actually bought some egg whites. So egg whites are my number one breakfast protein choice because they are 100% protein and nothing else. No carb, no fat. So if you are someone who eats eggs a lot now and you've never tried just having egg whites, this could be something you can start incorporating with your eggs to get a higher protein intake and not so much just a high fat and high protein intake. The way I like using egg whites, I actually mix them into my oatmeal a lot. And I just like having a little bit more creamy of oats, and it's even added benefit that they now have protein in them. Again, it's just personal preference on why I consume a lot of egg whites. I also picked up some Greek yogurt. Greek yogurt, again, is another high protein source with no fat in it. Has a little bit of carbohydrates, but it's mostly protein. For the Costco brand of Greek yogurt, it has about 6 grams of carbs per serving and over 18 grams of protein, no fat. So again, really great protein source. A lot of times I'll use this to mix into things like smoothies, or I'll make even like a smoothie bowl with the Greek yogurt in and of itself. And when my carbohydrates are even higher, my fats are even higher, I'll sometimes grab granola from Giant Eagle, mix it in. But this grocery haul, I didn't worry about getting that. So I got my essentials from Costco. Like I said, I got egg whites, Greek yogurt. As you can see, I got chicken thighs. We talked about that earlier. Picked up the blender, of course. And then I also got some frozen berries. Frozen produce isn't as good as fresh produce, but you still get a lot of antioxidants and great micronutrients in from frozen fruit. Fresh produce might be like that 100% greatest value that you can get. And then frozen fruit is probably somewhere between like an 85 to 95 range, depending on where you get the fruit from. A few other things that I picked up a nut butter complex. So this wasn't necessarily peanut butter, wasn't necessarily almond butter, but it was kind of a mix between almond butter, peanut butter, cashew butter, and some other type of nut. But overall, very great quality of fat, and the ingredients in it were super minimal, so I was excited to try it. And then we got a few other essentials here and there. And pretty much the way that I construct my meals throughout the day is I try to think of each source, and from there I'll mix in things to make a full meal. So let's say we're talking about my lunch, for example. I'll use chicken thighs for lunch as my protein source. Then I might mix in something like rice, which I didn't have to pick it up today because I have a 10-pound bag that I bought a few months ago. My protein source, like I said, will be my chicken thighs. My carbohydrate source will be the rice that I'll use. And then I might add in something like yum yum sauce, which is higher in fat. One of those condiments that I said I might get from a place like Giant Eagle. So each meal that I construct, I try to think of each individual ingredient as predominantly being one of the macronutrients. Do the same thing for dinner, and I do the same thing for breakfast. And overall, that's just how I like to eat. So if you're not already eating in that way, and you're just kind of going based completely on taste, this might be a helpful way to think about your food. Structure each and every single component of it based upon macronutrients. And then that way it makes it easier if you're tracking macros to get the right amounts in per meal, and it just makes it easier to track overall throughout the day. If you're not tracking macros specifically, this could just be a good way to make sure that you're getting in enough food by thinking about each component and what it actually does for your body. So that goes ahead and covers all the food that I purchased. But again, like I said, I want to talk about what training actually should look like when you're getting into a bulking / massing phase. So I want to run you guys through a workout I did the other day and talk about the details of why I was doing what I was doing. So let's get right into it. So I started off the workout with the hack squat. I have a love-hate relationship with the hack squat. It's actually one of my favorite machines. I say I have a love-hate relationship with it because it's very tough and it challenges me pretty often. This hack squat in particular is the Arsenal hack squat. I used to love the Cybex hack squat where the handles come up top. Cybex has two types of hack squats, if I'm correct. There's one where handles are up top and one where they're down low by your waist. But like I said, this Arsenal hack squat has felt the greatest biomechanically, as in, as I go down for the movement, I feel that my back is resting into the pad pretty well. It's put an okay pressure on my spine. And by okay, I mean it's not bothering my spine, but it's actually feeling like it's helping. It allows me to let my knees track over top of my toes while keeping my heels flatter. And overall, it's just a more comfortable type of hack squat machine. Close to failure today on everything that I was doing. That's how most of my training sessions are. And more specifically, on each one of the movements I did during this session, I was only 2 reps shy of failure. When it comes to the hack squat, 2 reps shy of failure for me, I like to think of only having 2 more reps left in the tank before I can't stand up. My form is locked in. It doesn't really change very much throughout the movement for me, so I can really push this closer to a true failure state. After the hack squat, I got into the leg press. And same thing with this, because I've had so long of doing the leg press and using this specific machine, my form feels pretty locked in, so I don't have to worry so much about figuring out the mechanics of the movement and then training to a failure where my form is breaking down. I can more train to, again, that true type of failure where I'm not able to physically push the leg press past a certain point. It's another great crucial thing that I probably should go over, and I'll go ahead and go over now. When it comes to training close to failure, you have to understand that there are different types of failure, and depending on your familiarity with a movement should determine how you are training to failure. If it's something that's brand new to you, you don't fully have the form down, then you want to train until your form starts to break down or just shy of that failure. If it's something that you are more comfortable with, you have been doing for a long time, you can train closer to true failure, as in muscle failure, where your muscles are about to literally give way, and so you're training just shy of that. This is why it's so important to make sure that you stick with a program or stick with a movement for a decent amount of time so that you can get to that point. If you're constantly changing movements, you're not going to necessarily let yourself reach your full potential with that movement before you move into the next. All right, so after the leg press, I actually did a few hamstring curls. One really great cue that I've been trying to focus on recently is tucking my hips underneath and squeezing my glutes in to the actual pad. This allows me to isolate my hamstrings even more as I go for the movement. I try to make sure I keep my toes relatively straight on. I try not to let them angle out or angle in, so that way I can feel most of the movement throughout the entirety of my hamstrings, not necessarily on one head of the hamstring versus the other. So after I moved on from the leg curl, I actually did lateral raises. But even on some of my leg days, I do movements that I need extra volume with that are not typically a leg day movement. So as you can see with this lateral raise right here, I'm clearly working my shoulders even on my leg day. It's because I have so much shoulder work that I need to get in order to continue to build more muscle that I do it on my leg day because it allows for me to get the extra volume in without necessarily making myself super tired on my upper body day. On these lateral raises, another thing I've been trying to focus on recently is thinking about having my arms just a hair, tiny bit in front of my body, so that way I can approach it from a better movement pattern to hit my side delt and hopefully have a better mind muscle connection. After that, I actually went back to another leg movement. I did a few calf raises. Calf raises are my nemesis, not because I don't do them, but more so because they just are hard for me. I know a lot of people struggle with growing their calves, myself included. I don't necessarily hate training calves though, it's just that they're more difficult for me. So the standing calf raise machine is probably my favorite way to train my calves. I'm not a big fan of the seated calf raise. I do them, but I'm not the biggest fan of them as much as I like the standing one. I feel like, again, I get a better mind muscle connection with the standing calf raise rather than the seated. And lastly, I got into a few cable crunches. I train abs multiple times a week. I know a lot of people out there don't train their abs and they think that it's just mostly a diet thing, but you have to realize that your abs are muscles just like every other muscle group in the body. And so they do respond well to weight training. It's not gonna make them big and bulky. It's just gonna make them respond because you're giving them a demand like you do with all the muscles in the body. After I finish my lifting session, one thing I've been doing a lot of recently is posing post-lifting. I think this has helped a lot in not only improving my posing, but helping me to have a better understanding of how to mentally connect with the muscle groups that I'm trying to develop. I usually spend roughly about 5 to 10 minutes posing after each one of my sessions. And personally, I just enjoy posing as well. So if you're currently in a bulking phase or you're thinking about entering one, remember that the goal is not necessarily just to gain weight. The goal is to gain muscle mass. And more specifically, you're trying to gain more muscle mass than fat mass. So with that, your training has to be pretty intense. In a way, our bodies are still primal and they're just gonna respond to the stress demands that we put on them. This is a side note, but this is why it's so important to make sure that you minimize stress in other areas of your life so that when it comes to working out and you're putting stress on your body there, you're not double working it, you're not double stressing it. You're giving it one form of stress and letting it recover back and forth. So if you're putting a high demand on weight training and then you're supplying your body with a good source of carbohydrates as well as protein and then keeping your fats in a minimal range, you should be able to build some muscle over time. And actually, I have another video coming up that I'm gonna go over my DEXA scan to show you guys a little bit more in depth of how you can actually measure the amount of muscle mass that you gain over time. Coming up next Friday, I'm gonna be starting off a new series. This is gonna be called Fundamental Fridays. I'm super excited about it. Basically, every Friday, I'm gonna go over a new movement and talk about the fundamentals behind it and why we do what we do and how to improve your training with it. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. And if you guys can't tell, I really enjoy this vlogging type style, so I plan to keep these up pretty much every weekend. So that's gonna do it for today's video. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.